Hi everyone, I'm the Seer, and this is the Noob's Guide to Patch 727. The latest DOTA patch just dropped, so I thought I'd give my potato bracket opinion on the changes. I intend this to be an ongoing series running alongside the main Noob's Guide, where we look into some of the more advanced mechanics of the game as they change in real time. This will give me the opportunity to fawn over the way Dota's balanced, like the excited fanboy that I am, but also hopefully give you some insight as to why mechanics are changed and in which ways. Obviously, I'm no Dota expert, so if you want a detailed guide, please wait for the number of much more professional analyses which will be available soon. My intention is to skim through these changes and offer very quick, basic level insights, so if you have a more specific question or want to discuss something, please leave a comment below and I'll get to it as soon as I can. So let's jump right in. General changes. Hero kills base XP increased, last hit gold increased, assist gold rescaled, and passive gold income increased as well. So what's going on here is, up until this point in the current meta, kills did not offer a lot of gold. So you had, what was going on was, most of the team was duking it out 4v4, and then the hard carry of each team was playing solo, farming creeps because they were worth more than actually getting in fights and getting kills. So I would expect the meta to change to heroes who are very good at getting solo kills, or potentially team fight heavy lineups. However, because of the way that the game was played until now, it would probably be, first it will start off as a pick-off sort of style, and maybe it will move on to team fight. So, next up, bounty runes are now reliable gold. This is interesting because reliable gold is gold that is not lost upon death. Usually the gold that you gain over time, you lose it if you die. However, reliable gold, which you get off of kills in Roshan and towers, does not get lost upon death, so this gives bounty runes a lot more importance than before. Especially, so level 0 will give you, the 0-minute bounty rune will give you a chance to sort of establish a presence, and it's maybe even worth to get the bounty rune and then die. Until now, it was always a bad idea to die for the bounty rune. In this case, it's not as bad an idea, but it's still probably not worth it, because, as in the changes above, kills do give more resources than before. Neutral stacking support bounty has increased. This has been going on for quite some time now, so as I mentioned in the support video, it's a very good idea to stack camps for your carries, and what happens is, if your carry, if someone else other than you kills the camp, then you get a part of that money redirected back to you. So this has been constantly getting buffed every patch, so I expect it to go even further. So it's a good thing to get used to stacking camps and letting your hard carry know that you're stacking it, because it's a source of money coming your way as well. Next, there's been a couple of map changes. Nothing too specific for new players, so I'm just going to skip these. The one thing that you might have noticed as a new player is the Prowler camp. So these, in the big Ancient Creep camp, there were these Centaur guys that completely wrecked you early levels. This will no longer be the case, as they've been completely removed. I do not expect them to come back. Next up, outposts. So we haven't discussed outposts, but basically this is it's a mechanic that was added to the game to ensure map control of one side. So what you could do was, this is a structure that's located in the center of the safe lane jungle of either side, and you could previously steal it early on and gain like a super early map advantage. This is no longer the case, as you will also be revealed if you're trying to take it, and your vision radius will... Oh, sorry, no, that's already in there. So, slight buff, I guess. So we have, on the one hand, we have the outposts, which are not controllable early, which would reduce... outposts being... the fact that you can take an outpost later on would make a game later. However, because of all the XP increase upon kills and the money increase upon kills, you have these two mechanics are sort of playing off each other. So I'm expecting the meta to shift towards getting a fight, getting a lot of kills, and then using that advantage to secure a tier 2 tower and then an outpost with it. However, because the defending team will be able to reclaim that outpost very soon, it's going to be a back and forth of playing around that one outpost. So it's going to be a pivotal point of control, and previously they were pretty much overlooked until this point. I expect them to be more of like a grouping point around major team fights and sort of controlling whether you can end the game or not. There's also something about lane creeps, avoiding hero aggro. So until now, in the very first minutes of the game, you could control you could control lane creep aggro and push them entirely away from where they meet, which was obviously an exploit which has been patched. However, you can totally manipulate creeps again after 5 minutes. So this is basically it's something that offlaners could do, and to an extent mid laners as well, as they could steal the creeps before they even walked up to the center point of the lane and exploit them by sending them to like jungle camps and farming everything for a lot of gold and XP. So this is no longer possible. So for your case, this doesn't really change anything. Courier bounty. So we haven't talked about the courier at all, which is one of the most important mechanics in Dota actually. But basically it's it's the little animal guy that can carry your items back and forth to and from the lane. So he has been slightly buffed, as in he doesn't cost as much when he dies, and he also becomes flying faster. However, to counteract this, his movement speed is reduced when carrying consumables. So basically what you would do in lane, especially as a carry, was you would start with minimal regen and then ferry regen to yourself with the courier. The fact that the courier is slower means that, one, this mechanic of not buying regen early and then bringing it in isn't as powerful, and also enemies who have their eyes open will be able to see that slow courier coming in and kill it. It was already super easy to kill, so I expect it to be even easier now. Armor has been slightly buffed for agility carries. Doesn't really affect the gameplay overall, as it's a very minor change. However, any agility heroes who were already strong, I expect them to become even stronger. This would mean assassin type carries like Ricky and Bounty Hunter. I expect them to be very prevalent, even in high level games. There's been slight changes to towers as well. Okay. So it says here that their DPS, so the damage per second overall, remains the same. So this would mean that it's probably a buff to what happens when you press the glyph button, which is something that I haven't talked about again. But basically, it's the mechanic where you can pause an enemy attack by shielding all your structures. And this also gives towers a multi-shot ability. So the fact that their general attack speed is up will also probably buff this. The fact that siege units have their health increase is not something to be overlooked. So basically, obviously this makes them stronger, but also there was a slight mechanic that happened where siege creeps would die to the enemy tower in 3 or 4 hits. So I expect them now to be always dying to the tower in 4 hits, so you'll be able to always get a last hit on the siege creep after 3 tower hits if you attack on the right time. All pick drafting, I'm not touching this at all, as it doesn't really affect new players, and we're just playing all pick here. But basically, the idea, the very generic idea, is that it's harder to pick a counter immediately. So if you, like, say, what was going on previously was my enemy team would pick a dazzle, so I would immediately counter it with an axe. This will have it will be harder to do, as the enemy team can pick axe dazzle combo, and then I cannot counter it that quickly. So this basically counters the direct counter pick strat of picking one hero and then your opponents immediately pick the worst possible matchup. Other than that, nothing too big. Fountain has been slightly buffed, so if you walked up to the enemy's base, you would get attacked. This has been improved, so you can't stand outside enemies' base. You have to actually end the game, which is nice. There's some buffs to neutral items, which I haven't discussed at all, but basically, I briefly mentioned them in the hard carry video, but the idea is these guys, the creeps in the jungle, they drop items which gives your teams all kinds of passive bonuses and active ones as well. So these have been slightly buffed to not drop if enemies are nearby, and not drop if they only drop if the real hero kills them, basically. There's also been slight changes to the way you regenerate health, basically. So what was going on until now was you had 2 mechanics, 3 actually: lifesteal, spell lifesteal, and HP regen. Just a minute. Right, so the way the game was played until now, it was highly benefiting of high right-click damage carries who would build items to raise their health. So what lifesteal does is you hit something and you get a bit of your damage back as health, and spell lifesteal obviously is you hit someone with a spell and then you get some of that health damage back as health. So what you would do is you would build a carry around lifestealing a lot and then a lot of damage. So just by right-clicking things, you would never die. So by stacking these things diminishingly rather than additively, it gives you the opportunity to be able to sort of counter these heroes organically rather than just have to kill them before they become powerful. So it's a slight nerf, I would say, to the classic high right-click damage carry. You'll have to play a bit more smart. You're not going to be able to just jump in a fight and just right-click things and things die and you don't die. You're going to have to play a bit more smart. Item changes next. So something that you haven't probably seen in your games, especially if they're low level, is the Necronomicon. So what was very prevalent in the previous metagame was the so-called zoo strat, where you would have a lot of small creeps controlled by your main hero, and you would throw all of these creeps onto the tower and get free tower kills, and then sort of push the game, push the lanes, and end the game very quickly. So one of the major components towards this sort of strategy is the Necronomicon, which creates two little units that are very good at attacking towers. Basically, there has been completely changed to be not effective at all versus creeps, slightly less effective towards buildings, and much more effective towards heroes. So previously, we even had situations of people who weren't even showing in the lane, so you didn't even see them having this item. They would sit in their own jungle and farm all the creeps quickly, and then suddenly when you saw them in lane, they would have like the late game items, and you would not have a way to counteract or deal with them. So the way this item has been changed, it's not less powerful, but it's less powerful in a way that you will see it coming, and you will be able to think about what to do against it. The fact that it's buffed against heroes, actually, it buffs the sort of hero who just needs a lot of DPS very quickly and doesn't have a lot of creep control, as in they can't really manipulate many creeps at the same time. So heroes with like a lot of stuns, like Bane, suddenly this item becomes very good at them, as they can stun a hero and then send the Necronomicon creeps onto their target and kill them. Helm of the Dominator, that was another very prevalent item in the so-called zoo meta, as you can use this item to control any creep in the jungle or enemy creep. So what this does now, it used to provide an aura, which would have a sorts of regeneration effects around your heroes and your team's heroes and their creeps. So this is no longer the case. Instead, it sort of buffs the creep that you dominate. Basically, what changes here is that people weren't really using the dominated creep for much. Like, they would pick a creep that had a stun, and they would use the stun on that creep, but not other than that. So the fact that this dominated creep is buffed would mean that it promotes basically smart gameplay around picking the right creep and using it effectively in fights. So it becomes more of a utility item around a specific creep that you have in mind. So the creeps in the jungle have active spells and passives of their own, so it becomes more a case of you have a strategy that revolves around a certain creep. You find that creep in the jungle, you dominate it, and then you play around that. So honestly, the main thing I can think of right now is there is a creep in the jungle that has a stun, which is a centaur, and having this creep with these stats would be very, very strong with the right combination. Vladimir's Offering was a very popular item until now on off lanes. So what has been changed is now it doesn't have the very good armor and stats that it used to give, and the lifesteal. So you would hit things and you would get HP back. That's what lifesteal is. That's been heavily nerfed. So it's in a strange case of it's not very good as a general pickup overall. However, this very nice 18% damage aura is nothing to laugh at. So you have the problem of it's a quite expensive item that just gives you a general aura. I do believe that it is relevant, but maybe definitely not as much as it used to be. So you have a bit of lifesteal, you have a bit of damage. So I think this is maybe a good core item on someone like Vengeful Spirit, as it would probably stack with her aura that also gives damage to nearby allies. But other than that, I don't think you would still pick it up on a typical offlane hero, as you kind of need the like the other spells, like the effects that it gives you don't really benefit you in that way. Like, I don't think 15% is enough sustain for a 2,375 gold item. However, you still do need sustain in some way, so I wonder if this is going to... It's probably definitely going to change the meta away from just picking Vladimir's offering on every offlaner every time. It's going to be more fluid of a metagame. Drum of Endurance, so it has become a very cheap item to pick up, and the attributes that it gives are very good. However, it still has 6 actives and then you're done. You have to rebuy the recipe to get your money's worth. So, doesn't give you attack speed, it gives you 6 all attributes, mana regen, movement speed bonus. This is actually probably a decent item for offlaners. Yes. Yeah, so basically Drum of Endurance was usually picked up either on the 4 support, so on the soft support, or on the hard carry to give you quick stats. So it does have merit for quick stats, however you also have to think about slots as well. So I want to say that it is strong right now as a first level pickup after your boots. It always was strong on soft supports. It will be slightly strong again on carries. It's going to come down to the wire on whether this is worth it over building towards one of the more late game items. At 1,475, I do think it's definitely worth it as a very quick casual purchase. Mechanism is one of the oldest items in the game, and I'm glad to see that it has slightly been buffed. So basically, the armor aura that was previously on Vladimir's offering has now been moved to Mechanism again. I'm pretty sure it used to have an armor aura under Buckler. Yeah. Anyway, Mechanism is in a weird state in that it's technically a support item, as it gives you health and health to allies, which is something that supports would want to have. However, at the minute, it's slightly expensive and way too mana costly for support, so you would have a sort of intelligence-based heavy mana offlaner using this item. I do think this is still the case, so you might see now like a more spell-based offlaner being ready to pick up this item more often than before, but I feel it's still too situational at the time. Obviously, if you have the money to upgrade to Guardian Greaves, it's a very strong item. And it's slightly cheaper than before, I guess. No, it says total cost remains the same, so yeah, this item is in a weird case of it's too expensive. It's ideal for sports, but too expensive for the sports to get. So I don't expect much change in this order. Crimson Guard no longer provides stats, but the cooldown has been reduced. I don't see this item being picked up very often. I think it's a very good item early on. So could be good. Could be good. It's a very minor buff. IMO. Blade Mail is one of the more interesting changes that I would like to discuss. So basically, it no longer grants intelligence, which was something that was very, very useful for strength carries who tended to buy it. However, now it used to have an active that would return damage done on you by any unit. Now it does this passively, 20% all the time, which is very, very, very strong. And you can pop the active to turn it to 100%. So this is interesting as it becomes, first off, it's a much more situational item. You don't build it every time. However, it always deters enemy players from attacking, which is not something you want always all the time, because if you're playing a tank hero, like a hero who is in the front line, you sort of want to attract enemy damage, and if you divert enemies from attacking you, they will instead attack your supports, so you might accidentally help the enemy team by turning focus away from you. This is a very strong pickup. However, I must say that it turns into a more situational pick. obviously I expect, because of this, like, people see the passive 20%, like, oh, it's so strong. This is going to be a very divisive item. It's going to see people picking it up, like, regardless, and 20% damage is not that game breaking, especially when you consider that I don't know. Anyway, point is, the people who would still pick up Blade Mail previously definitely still pick it up now. And yeah, that's it. New item added to the game, Blitz Knuckles. So previously there was an item called Quarterstaff, which gave slightly better passive bonuses and was slightly cheaper. So basically this is a slight nerf overall to the build-up to Monkey King Bar, which is one of the more pivotal items in the last metagame. So basically the damage that this item does passively has been reduced. I think it still has the same effect. Yes. So slime item hasn't really been changed overall. However, I think it's a slightly higher cost. And then you have the damage being reduced, but the attack speed is quite significantly buffed. So basically this is a buff towards heroes who don't have a lot of native attack speed, but tend to buy this item. Who would that be? So you had, obviously agility carries have a lot of attack speed, but they also have quite a bit of damage. So you would have sort of strength carries who didn't have a lot of native attack speed, but they gain attack speed through this item. So maybe it's made into a more versatile item that covers both strength and agility needs. Not specifically changed in either way, except slight buff towards strength carries picking it up and slight nerf towards agility carries. That's kind of how I feel about it. Orchid Malevolence, this is a quite interesting change. So Orchid Malevolence is an item that just silences on cast, and Oblivion Staff is one of the core build-up items. Slight increase on the bonus damage, not that important. However, the fact that the recipe cost has been reduced, which is... So the pivotal thing about Orchid Malevolence is the timing of this item, which is when you get it, and it's a very common pickup on sort of assassin-type intelligence cores. So I'm thinking Queen of Pain is the main carry I can think. To a lesser extent, you could see it also picked up on Invoker. Storm Spirit also likes this item. And Clinks, who's an agility carry, also tends to rush it. So having a cheaper recipe on this item means that you can get it faster, which means you hit the timings that you want to hit with those assassin-type heroes much faster, and then you can snowball into a very early advantage. So that's something which, it's a very slight change, but it will impact many things. Now, the mono-region intelligence reduction is not out of the question. It is a nerf. However, the cheaper recipe definitely counteracts that. Changes to Shadow Amulets, and all of these three items, Shadow Amulet, Glimmer Cape, and Shadow Blade, give you sort of invisibility. Now, the first two were usually bought by supports, whereas the last one was bought by carries. So the build-up for Shadow Blade is interesting, and I don't really like it. Yeah, all these items don't really give you something passively. Like, you don't get anything from having these items one by one. The combination is very good. However, this is a 3,000 gold item that is countered by a single dust or sentry ward. So, it's more situational than before, and honestly, I wasn't really seeing this item anyway in my pub, so I think... Honestly, I don't know why this item was nerfed. It was already good enough. Glimmer Cape, on the other hand, remains as strong as it was before, probably slightly stronger. I think, yeah, it's still 1,900 gold. I don't know, yeah, Glimmer Cape is still very, 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 very strong. It's one of my favorite items to pick up on sports. Echo Saber, this is a nerf, and specifically a nerf to Monkey King, as his ultimate would basically cast a whole bunch of clones of himself who would also apply the Echo Saber slow, which is no longer the case. Silver Edge now requires Echo Saber instead of Ultimate Orb, blah blah blah. Okay, so this item would be very useful for Slark, and that's it. yeah, no, it's way too expensive. The item component buildup is good, but yeah, I think it's only good on Slark, where you have his passive Essence Shift that's stealing agility from other carries. Sorry, taking stats from other enemies he hits and turns it into agility. So Echo Saber double attack, that works very well. And he also would generally sometimes build Shadow Blade, so having this as a combo is a good idea. I can't really think of a hero. Well, it could work on Dragon Knight? No. Yeah, it's not a lot of heroes, so Magnus could benefit from this as well. But other than that, not very good. It's also because Echo Saber, I think, is melee only. Yes, it's melee only, so it's very, very bad idea to pick up Silver Edge for the active break component onto a ranged hero, basically. I think that was the intended change. Bracer, Wraithband, and No Talisman, these are very popular items to pick up in the early game. So let's quickly look at these stats. Slight reduction in the stats. You don't get the magic resistance. It was pretty minor. 3 damage and HP regen. That's actually very, very strong early game. So Bracer, very, very good item to pick up on any strength hero. Wraithband grants armor and attack speed. So agility carries, because they're agility carries, tend to have a lot of armor naturally. So I'm not sure if they need more armor. And the stats have been reduced. It is, I think, the cheapest. No, they all cost the same. Situationally good, I guess, against, like, as a hard carry against attack heavy offlaners. So, like, if you have like a Pangolier in your lane or something. Yeah, other than that, I don't really like it. And also, you get more armor per agility now, so you don't really need the armor early game. I'm not sure why this was changed this way. No Talisman, on the other hand, gives you spell amplification, which it already did, and also gives you mana regeneration. So this actually becomes a very, 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 very strong item for mid laners who need that early stat regen. Ring of Rage and Sage's Mask have been even more reduced in cost. I was always complaining about them being too cheap. That's fine. Sage's Mask mana regen has been reduced to the same amount as No Talisman, so basically you get the same bonuses baked into a No Talisman as you would get from buying a Sage's Mask. Alright. I'm not sure what to make of this, but basically I guess it's an interesting choice if you have items that build into this later on. Like, I do expect to see Ring of Regen being picked up early on as like a starting item. If you intend to build it into something else, that might be something that we see early on. I wonder, can I see real quick? So yeah, you might want to like start Ring of Regen, fast Tranquil Boots. I don't know. This is a buff to Tranquil Boots. Okay. Not insubstantial. That's actually important. The Ring of Regen being reduced. Okay. I don't like the Sage's Mask changes because you basically have the same change baked into No Talisman, so it's going to make people want to build No Talisman to have stats as well, rather than build Sage's Mask into something else. Unless, maybe I'm forgetting something. What does Sage's Mask build into? It does build into Earn the Shadow still. So, okay. You could start maybe with an earlier Earn the Shadows, and then... I don't like it. And it's cheaper Oblivion Staff. So again, that makes Orchid Malevolence cheaper, so I guess it's intended for that sort of interaction. Okay. Anyway, fine. Whatever. Ring of Protection cost has slightly increased. Fair enough. It was a very strong starting item. Ring of Basilius. Recipe. Okay, so these two build off of these two, so they've just increased the recipe cost. So basically, what was happening was people would start their game with these two items and as a starting item, so basically having a very expensive recipe on these makes them not as strong as a starting item. I think that was the idea immediately behind upgrading, lowering the cost on these two, but raising the cost on the recipes for these two. But then it also affects the interactions with the components. Not sure. So I think it's just, I'm overthinking it, since it's basically just a nerf to these two items as a starting item, but a general buff to the later items that these two build into. Buckler also has been reduced to be the same. Total cost. This is still a very strong starting item. Yeah, considering that you don't really have armor based off of Vladimir's offering, you might see a lot of people starting with this now. Urn of Shadows, slightly nerfed, no big deal, I always buy it. Pipe of Insight, even more nerfed. People are already not picking it up, and it's a shame because it's a really strong item, but it has an awkward sort of, it's too expensive basically. By the time you get it, you've already lost its use, so it's an item that protects you from magic damage, but by the time you get it, magic damage is no longer relevant, and your enemy hard carries are hitting you, and the spells aren't doing any damage anyway, so I don't like this nerf. Tranquil Boots, slight nerf to the speed it gives you, however, let's keep in mind that the total cost has been reduced, yep, as documented here, so overall, especially for supports, seeing as you get more gold over time, this is a quite significant buff. So you get you get a couple kills, and then you get quick Tranquil Boots, and then you're basically unkillable in the very early game. Later on, this speed reduction will mean that carries will have an easier time getting to you and killing you. So early game buff overall for supports, but then they will fall off harder late game if they pick up this item. All these four are grouped up in a single point for a good reason. So instead of reducing the mana cost every time, so basically what these items would do, Kai specifically, is it would cost less mana to use abilities. Instead, now it will buff your mana regeneration. So basically, it benefits you if you don't have a full mana pool. So if your mana is full, you don't gain any benefits. So I'm guessing this sort of benefits a more active playstyle, so to speak. Or so the one hero that comes to mind from all of these changes is Storm Spirit, who his ultimate makes him zip around the map and costs mana to use. So immediately giving him more mana regeneration immediately benefits him, as he is never with maximum mana because he's always using his ultimate to dart around. However, giving him more mana regen means that he can use his ultimate more effectively. So all of these immediately scream to me high mana cost abilities. Storm is one, Leshrek is the other. Queen of Pain, again, Death Prophet. Invoker, not so much. And for Yasha and Kaya, the mana, the mage build on Luna would be quite relevant. No, not really actually for Luna. Scratch the Luna, because Luna's ultimate is way too high cooldown, so even though the stun is low, you're not going to be in fights that much, so Spell Amp slightly increased. Okay, so again, slight buff to combining Kaya with the other two sword items. I feel I'm getting deja vu. Are these the same changes? Okay, Sanj no longer provides spell lifestyle amplification. Alright, fine. Let's move to Kaya. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, so Kaya also gives you spell lifesteal. Okay, so this item has become massively strong as an early pickup by intelligence cores. Very, very strong. Alright, I expect to see a lot of this. Okay. So immediately, this is a direct buff to intelligence carries. Aside from the fact that you didn't see any buffs on the heroes themselves specifically, just changing these items in this way is massive in that way. Bloodstone gives you spell amp as well, spell lifesteal amp. Okay, this item is being very, very slowly being stealth buffed every patch. At some point, it's going to become relevant, and heroes, again, that would have a lot of mana-intensive abilities, like the ones I mentioned before, are going to be seeing this as a potent potential pickup. You know, it's the little things that count. 10 mana, 10 magic resistance on these 3 items. Not really important for the people who would pick up these items are intelligence cores who generally don't really have a problem with dealing with spells themselves, so very slight buff, but fine, yeah. Bloodstone cooldown has been reduced. No one was really using the active anyway, so fine. It has a massive mana cost, so yeah. It's 30% of your max mana, that's ridiculous. Octarine Core was a very strong late game item, which has been changed to, wow, it's very much cheaper now. 5,900 to 5,000, that's big, and it also uses this new item. 12% spell lifesteal, not that important early on, as your spells don't deal that crazy amount of damage. Like, maybe on like a very spell-intensive Leshrac or Lena build, it might be relevant, but other than that, Or maybe Bristleback actually could benefit heavily from this one. And then just the quick Octarine Core rush to get that 25% spell lifesteal. That would be actually very, very strong. So I guess buff to Bristleback then. Veil of Discord. Slight. It's been reworked. Less attributes. Much less cost. Higher cooldown, not too much. And spell amp reduction. So basically it has been relegated to be even more early game than before. So that's actually a very good change. I like this a lot. So this is going to be a very good pickup aside a Drum of Endurance and Glimmer Cape on like a Jakiro or like a very mana intensive support like Zeus as a support as well, Lena as a support. Going to be very, very strong. I'm going to try this in a couple games. That cost is ridiculously low for what it does. That's like early game securing right there. Early game securing, like you're gonna need something else for the late game for sure. Holy Locket, no one was picking this item before. It's an upgrade to the magic wand. You can now target allied units. That's fine, but it's a 2,500 item, so I think Mechanism is still better if you want to heal allies. I'm not really enthusiastic about this, but you know, at some point you might get these amazing. It's going to become so strong and no one's going to be noticing it until one time suddenly everyone's going to be picking it up. There is that very strong amplification of health stuff, and the way amplification has been changed. So wait a minute, let's go back up. Come on. Health amplification stacks diminishingly. So I don't know. This isn't the patch for Holy Locket just yet. It's gonna come. It's gonna come. Soul Ring has been changed in how it's built, so basically it provides strength and armor. This is kind of how it used to be, as it used to provide strength as well. So, hold on. Requires double gauntlet, ring protection, and a recipe. Doesn't require Sage's Master. The items page is wrong. That's fine. So basically, Soul Ring is good on strength cores. I'm going back to the fact that Blade Mail doesn't give you intelligence. So this burst mana is going to be very strong on strength offlaners who need a lot of burst mana. So that would be Pangolier, Axe, not Axe. Pangolier, Mars, Abaddon, still Centaur Warrun? No. Yeah, I think Abaddon, Pangolier, Mars. Those 3 come to mind. Oh, Legion Commander as well. Will be very good on her. Hyperstone, slight change. Nothing too big. Salt Cuirass no longer provides stats. Fine, no big deal. It was still a very, very strong item. Bloodthorn attack speed increase. Okay, it's already stupidly strong. Fine. A Battle Fury change. This item keeps getting changed in how it's built because it's a very, the timing of this item directly correlates to specific melee cores being strong in the meta or not. Slight reduction on the damage, slight reduction on the cost, slight reduction on the mana region. So, well, this is going to be very dependent on general timing and how the patch feels, but this means that if you can get this item faster, it means you can farm faster, it means you can end the game faster. However, the meta wants to shift towards getting kills, so in general, Battle Fury and, kind of building a farm-oriented core is not going to be as strong. So even though I consider this a slight buff, the sort of playstyle around passive farming has been nerfed. So overall, I would say it's going to be around the same for this item. That's what I feel, at least. So pretty much the same here. I look forward to that completely blowing up in my face later. Broadsword, nothing. Damage reduced, no big deal. Crystallis as a first pickup on like some kind of high damage carry like Clinks, for instance, or anyone who's going to build into a Bloodthorn is very, very strong. And actually, now that I think of it, Bloodthorn is built out of Orchid, Malevolence, and Crystallis, so both of those component items being cheaper means that the overall pickup is much more potent on the cores who pick it up. So Queen of Pain, Clinks, big buff for those two heroes. Cloak, it's a reduction on price. Ooh, very, very strong. Very, very strong. How to define slight recipe increase. Okay. So basically, this buffs Cloak and its upgrade Glimmer Cape. So this makes that item very strong instead. So what was going on previously, you'd have a lot of carries building Hood of Defiance to defend themselves from magic damage cheaply. This is no longer as strong. So slight nerf in that order, but slight buff to supports who would build the Glimmer Cape upgrade. Alright, I personally play support more, so I like this a lot more. Satanic has 500 gold recipe, very, very impactful, because this item was dominating late game, so it's just making it just that bit more unreachable to, so it's not as, so it's not showing up as early in game, so it gives the opposing team more time to see that item coming, or end the game before that carry picks it up. Meteor Hammer. Meteor Hammer is an item that still sees not a lot of play, and it's a big shame because I absolutely love it. So, Preservance Crown and 250 gold recipe. Okay, strange build-up. I don't really like it. Gives you stats, region, and mono-region. Okay. So, the way, if it's a cheap item, okay, it's 350, so it's like one of the staff items still. Okay, so generally giving you stats would gear it towards cores, whereas giving you region would gear it towards supports. So the way it is now, I think it's strong still, but more towards supports, actually. So you would pick it up as like a 4 support who has 1 stun, and then you combo it into your next stun. So like Nyx Assassin would be very, very strong with this one. Spirit Vessel used to have an aura that reduced heals. This is very, very big, and it no longer has it. So big nerf on this item. Even though the active component has been buffed significantly, it basically turns it back into what it used to be. So this item is, you would cast it on the enemy carry has like a very high health region. So like the enemy Alchemist, or the enemy like Troll Warlord, or anyone who was relying on a lot of health region, a lot of lifesteal to get to survive fights. Morphling as well, completely ruined by this item. However, it's no longer passive aura, so you actually have to have charges and use this item to actually get effect. So it's no longer like an immediate rush item on any hero. It's going to have to be a lot more like specific on who gets it and why, and it's a lot more situational. I quite like this. Shiva's Guard, freezing aura now applies a 25% heal reduction in the area. Ooh, that's very, very strong. So people weren't really buying Shiva's Guard up to this point, even though it's a very, very strong item. Again, this is going to be big against, again, the heroes I mentioned before. Alchemist, Morphling immediately come to mind. You will previously get it because the sort of push of the aura of the active of the item would like be very good against illusions and multiple hero summons. So it becomes more of a general buff item. This is interesting. It's not that expensive too. Okay, so any kind of, I'm thinking intelligence offlaner, or like position 2, would benefit greatly from this pickup as like a general buff to your team in team fights. But you don't, previously you don't really have an option. Like if you were intelligence core but not like a hitting hero, you would go for like Hex. This gives you a lot more versatility in how you play against certain teams. Very, very nice. Dagon, no one was picking up Dagon until now, so this sort of change in how it's built is quite interesting. It's still very, very expensive for what it does, so I think it's still very situational. It's like, it's only really good if you pick it up like 10 minutes in and end the game in 18 minutes. So if the games are very, very faster, it's going to be relevant. Other than that, still not very good. Heart of Tarask now passively provides 1% health regeneration all of the time outside of fights, so it's big. So basically, it's a nerf to its capabilities outside of fights, but a buff to its overall capabilities, so it turns more into a fighting item. It is still very expensive, and it doesn't give you any armor, which is something I always gripe about later on in team fights. You really want that armor to resist enemy right clicks. So it's very strong against like sort of balanced magic attack damage teams, but against the traditional team that has like a very high attack damage carry, you still want to build armor over this first. Having armor and this item obviously makes you ultra strong. Eye of Scotty, heal reduction increased. Wow, okay. So this item was already very strong. The question about Eye of Scotty is that it has a very awkward buildup in that it's all purchasable from the secret shop, so you see a lot of people not building it. Heal reduction increase, so it's already it's better at doing what it did previously. It doesn't really change the reason you would buy it, but it does nerf the heroes who it's countered against. So seeing as we had the previous changes in mind, I think it's a slight nerf coming towards Morphling and an Alchemist, as the enemies can choose to pick that item up and kill you. However, they do have to buy that very expensive item, so it's not the end of the world for those carries. It does offer more options against them. Quelling Blade, slight buff. Yeah, slight reduction in damage, but that's not immediately as important as the reduction in cost. Even a slight reduction in cost is a buff. Okay, so we have next up, Lincoln Sphere, recipe cost reduced. That means it's a more useful item early on. Lincoln Sphere is in a weird case where it's an item that you rush, but doesn't really give you any damage. So reducing the cost means that you can become relevant more quickly. So fine. That's a buff towards any of the carries who would be picking it up. Morphling, Weaver, Wind Ranger, sorry, to a more lesser extent. It's not insignificant. Abyssal Blade cast range reduced slightly. That's good, because it was a very strong item, still is. Heaven's Halberd evasion reduced, coupled with the overall like reduction in stacking HP regen and lifesteal. It has been nerfed. It's still a very strong item overall. Like, if people are sleeping on Heaven's Halberd all the time, I guess since attacking carries aren't going to be as strong, it's not going to be a strong item overall, but I fucking love this item on off lanes. It's really, really strong. Dragon Lance, agility increase. I wasn't really seeing people pick it up anyway, so Hand of Midas, XP multiplier increase. Nope. That's not the patch. That's not the patch for this item. Fresher Orb, cooldown reduced. Fine, no biggie. Ultimate Orb cost reduced. Okay, so that's a slight buff again towards items that build into it. So Manta Style, Eye of Scotty. Mana Regen reduction on infused raindrops. That's fine. It's a very, very strong item. Nullifier projectile speed increased. Fine. Aghanim Blessing, recipe cost reduced. I don't see this item being picked up ever, so I guess it's meant to make people want to pick it up. I still don't think it's going to be relevant anytime soon. Ether Lens, recipe cost reduced. Fair. I think Ether Lens is in a good state, so yeah, it's a very, very minor cost in reduction. So, okay. Booster Travel 2, reduce the cooldown to 30. It's still way too expensive. It still remains the very situational item that it is. Smoke of Deceit, cost reduction. Ooh, that's actually very big. I like this a lot. So A was in a kind of weird state of you didn't really have the money to buy it just every time. Now you're definitely going to see people starting with Smoke of Deceit and like trying to do some kind of weird play to secure like a first blood and a couple early kills, which might go heavily towards like securing a bounty rune and the advantage that comes with it. So I like that a lot. Sentry Ward replenished cooldown reduced. Okay, fine. Slight buff to Sentry Wards, good. I expect assassin carries to be very strong, so any kind of buff towards Sentry Ward is very good. Total Knowledge cost reduction. Ooh, I like this a lot. But as a support, I never have the opportunity to buy this item. Carries keep stealing it, so Gloves of Haste, move from miscellaneous shop category to equipment with the other attack speed items. Okay, fine. Neutral items, I can't really focus on these as we haven't really talked about them. I would just say buff, nerf. Mango Tree, situational, like very utility, quality of life buff. Iron Talon, very slight nerf, it's still very strong. Royal Jelly, nerf because it doesn't drop combined with Mango Tree, so if you had these two items together, you basically won the game off of the strength of the region that they gave, so that's good. It's a nerf, obviously. Broom Handle, slight buff, no big deal. The other items are stronger. Faded Brooch, slight nerf, no big deal again. Arcane Ring, armor reduction, slight nerf, no big deal. These two are still very, very strong. Vampire Fangs, night vision increased. No one was buying it for the night vision anyway. Philosopher's Stone, damage reduction, reduced. It's still not, like, it still remains the same usage. Like, you're still going to be picking it up on your support. Essence Ring, cooldown increased. Fair nerf. It's one of the stronger neutral items. Clumsy Net, cast range reduced. Plus 6 to plus 5. Slight nerf, well deserved. It is a very strong item, situationally, obviously. Greater Fairy Fire no longer drops as another consumable item, so it doesn't drop together with Repair Kit. Fair. So you can either have one or the other. Damage increased for Fairy Fire. Strong for carries, then. Repair Kit has a 60-second cooldown. Okay, this was a massively strong item for defense. No longer such. Important. Health Regen increase. No one's buying it for that. Spider Legs, cooldown increased. Fair nerf. It's one of the strongest items in the game. Enchanted Quiver. Cooldown reduced. Wow. Okay, so this is already a very strong item. So reducing the cooldown. Tasty. Or reduction, slight nerf. No. Nerf on the armor reduction, but then buff on the slow. No one's... It's situationally good, like on like the hard carry. So yeah. It's I guess it's made more of a utility item. Usually carries tend to have some way of catching up to enemies anyway. So I don't like it. It makes it less of it makes it more of like an all-round item than a specific targeted item, which I always like the specific targeted items. Mindbreaker cooldown reduced. Wow, it's already insanely strong. Okay, fine. Titan Silver, slight increase in damage, reduction in resistance. Fine. I consider this a slight buff, as you usually pick it up on the hard carry. And percentage in status isn't as important, as usually carries tend to build spell immunity. Paladin's Sword, damage increased, life steal reduced. Overall, nerf because of the changes that we mentioned before with lifesteal stacking. So you can't really get all the bonuses that you would have before. Princess Knife, cooldown reduced. It's already very strong. Flicker, okay, so there's an interaction where you could basically just stay in the same points. Fine. Illusionist Cape, incoming damage increased. Very, this item is insanely strong on illusion cores, so I feel this is not strong enough of a nerf. Honestly, it's still very, very, very strong. Havoc Hammer, impact radius increased. Impact base damage rate. No one is using this item. I'm never seeing it. It's very, very even these buffs are not big. Magic Lab heal increased. That's actually very significant. That's very significant. It was already good enough. If you had quick enough fingers, you could use that heal to completely escape a fight. So this helps you get away more. And finally, Pirate Hat doesn't steal gold on kills, but activates to dig for bounty runes. Oh, so okay, fine. I guess you're more of a pirate if you're stealing gold, but other than that, fine. I guess it's kind of a joke item, really, compared to all the other tier 5 items, which is fucking ridiculous. Okay, so that's that. Thanks for watching, and I hope I provided any kind of insight. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment below, and I'll respond to it as quick as I can. Thanks very much, and I'll see you next time.